We begin expectedly in Afghanistan and the tightening grip of the Taliban as desperate families beg for help at the perimeter of Kabul airport. And those are just the people who managed to make it as far as the airport. Thousands have been turned back by Taliban fighters at checkpoints en route. Lots of terrible images coming out of Afghanistan days after the militants took over the country. The US has airlifted about 5,000 people out of Afghanistan, but that leaves around 75,000 American citizens and Afghan support staff still to go, with just 2 weeks left before the self-imposed deadline. Correspondents say that even with the accelerated pace of the evacuation, it's starting to look like the US won't meet its deadline.
We're going to do everything in our power to get all Americans out and our allies out.
Does that mean troops will stay beyond August 31st if necessary?
It depends on where we are and whether we can ramp these numbers up to 5,000 to 7,000 a day coming out. If that's the case, they'll all be out.
Because we've got like 10 to 15,000 Americans in the country right now, right? And are you committed to making sure that the troops stay until every American who wants to be out is out?
Yes.
So Americans should understand that troops might have to be there beyond August 31st.
No, Americans should understand that we're going to try to get it done before August 31st.
But if we don't, the troops will stay.
If we don't, we'll determine at the time who's left. And if there are American forces, if there's American citizens left, we're going to stay till we get them all out.
President Biden. Well, Settar Mengli is a freelance journalist who's been monitoring developments for us in Afghanistan, and he joins me now from Kabul. Good to see you, Settar. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Just bring us up to date with those nettlesome evacuations. We understand the Taliban are now blocking roads and access to Kabul airport. What's the latest that you're hearing?
Well, yes, Charles, there has been a lot of struggle and rush to the Kabul airport. There are thousands of people waiting outside the airport, and there has been thousands of people evacuated as well. But still, there are many people, thousands of people waiting outside the airport with paper or without paper. Some of the locals have just ran to the airport just to get into any plane and get out. The situation is deteriorating as the American and the Taliban forces firing warning shots to disperse the crowd, but people are just rushing to every gate of the Kabul airport.
Well, I mean, just help us drill down further into that, because we just heard President Biden in that clip admitting that American troops are having difficulty getting Afghan civilians who worked with the US, and indeed American citizens as well, out of the country. I mean, as you said, reports of hundreds of families gathered outside the airport pleading with American officials to let them in. Some flights, I understand, being stopped due to Taliban interference. I mean, tell us more about what you've been witnessing, because from where we are, it sounds like an absolutely desperate situation.
Well, yes, it is a desperate situation, but we haven't heard of any reports that Taliban are stopping people to go to the airport, but they are trying to manage people in the gates of the airport, because there are thousands of people in each gate trying to just get in to the airport with papers or without papers. People who are being evacuated are with papers. They have their names in the list, but the rest of the people are just citizens. Most of them have probably not worked with the coalition forces or the U.S. forces or any of the Western countries. The situation is getting bad as people from the other provinces are also running towards the Kabul International Airport.
So, I mean, what about the reports that the Taliban are beating people and violating their promises to let them through to be evacuated? What are you hearing about that?
Well, as we hear, planes are landing, airplanes are landing, and they are departing from the Kabul International Airport. I believe that people are able to get into the airport, but there has been an extreme rush to the airport. So the capacity of airport is just not for those thousands of people standing in the gates of the airport. It is just a few thousand. The capacity is just for a few thousand, and there has been chaos because of all civilians running towards the airport. And then about the beatings, as I went around the Kabul airport, but I haven't seen any beatings. But there is, of course, rush, and there is, of course, a lot of people just like pushing each other, and then nobody is in the queue. There is no order. It's just a chaos situation that has been created by the vacuum that has happened here in the city.
And there was an incident involving a plane, we heard about this, that took off from Kabul airport that was stopped by the Taliban in Kandahar in southern Afghanistan, and some 600 Afghans were forced to leave, but couldn't, the plane, they were forced to leave the plane, and US officials on board apologized, but said they couldn't do anything. What did you hear about that?
Well, as we hear that yes, there has been such incidents happening, but I believe that in this situation, in chaos that has been created after the vacuum, we see like many incidents. For instance, there has been shots fired to the air by both sides, and then a lot of people are being injured, and then the hospitals, they're just rushing to the hospitals now because of the injured people, not just because of the fires that has been fired to the air, but also people just hordes of people and crowds of people just running through each other. I just got a report that there is 50,000 people waiting in the front gate of the Kabul International Airport, and I can't imagine about the other possible doors to the international airport. How many? I believe there are other thousands of people waiting there as well.
What about the reports of killings? We've heard of people being shot at the airport and some people dying, some reports suggesting up to 12 people killed. Also in other parts of Afghanistan, people holding the Afghan flag reported to have been killed.
Yes, today, 19th of August, is the Independence Day of Afghanistan, and people have rushed out to the streets, especially in the eastern provinces, to celebrate, and in the meantime also protest. There has been reports that some of the people are being killed in a warning shots in the southern provinces. But about the airport, we are not sure who has fired the bullets towards the civilians. There is no initial report about ex-military personnel firing to the civilians. Yes.
And Settar, what about you personally? I mean, you're in Kabul. How do you feel about your personal safety and those of your relatives and your friends?
Well, Charles, according to the spokesperson of the Taliban, Zabihullah Mujahid, the media can operate freely, as we see the Western media platforms here in the streets of Kabul, and we believe as journalists that as long as there is official statements, we are able to operate in the city.
Okay, Settar, do take care and stay safe. Settar Mengli is a freelance journalist who was talking to me there from Kabul.